Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here for your next PB&J card class. And in today's video, I will be showing you how I created this fun little card featuring the critters from our transparent set called Good Times. And the sentiment and the glasses die cut, they come from these two lines, the perspective transparent set, and then the glasses are one of our creative dies. And I'm just popping up here a supply list, and I will put this back up at the very end of the video, so this is just a peek at it, but it will be right up here on screen at the very end of the video. So if you want to look at it in more detail, you can just hit pause at that time. So to begin, I'm going to do my stamping with this Good Time stamp set. There's tons of cute little furry dogs in here, and I've used them on several cards, but this is one of my favorites. I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers, which are an alcohol-based marker, and so I am stamping this with Memento Tuxedo Black ink onto Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm stamping this in my Misty Stamp Positioning tool so I can stamp it a couple of times just to really darken up the impression and that black ink. So like I said, I'm going to be coloring this with Copic markers, and I will have a complete list of all the markers used at the very end of the video. I started by adding some darker shadows on the dog and then going back and blending it with a lighter color. And I'm just kind of working that ink in. This is very basic coloring. And coming in here now with an even darker color, I thought it just needed a little bit more contrast. Giving him some happy rosy cheeks. And then just a touch more of a darker color here in these shadows. These critters are really easy to color, and even if you just do very basic coloring or use colored pencils, watercolors, they always turn out great because there's just so much character and detail already built up into the actual stamp. So I went ahead with that darker color and blended it out with the lighter. And now I'll work on all of the tray and all of the items on the tray. I think this particular stamp is wonderful with these glasses because of the way that little sort of placemat or napkin hangs down. It's a perfect fit just right over the bridge of the nose of the glasses. This is also very easy to fussy cut. If you look around the edges on the dog, the ears, the tray, those are all pretty easy to cut out. And on the roses, it's not too tough either. I just skip a few of those leaves. So you will see me going a little bit out of the lines here on the outer perimeter, which is no problem because I will be fussy cutting this out. On the roses, I just concentrated on having some variation of color, nothing too detailed in the shading, but just some areas of light and some areas of dark. And I'm going to pull some of those same colors down into the items on the tray. For my Copic coloring, I typically start with my darker color first, and then I go back in and blend that with the lighter color. You can see me kind of doing that there on the stripes. And then if needed, I'll go back in and darken things up and create more contrast. So I'm just going to finish coloring this up here, and I'll be right back with you. I'll turn on a little music and I'll be right back. So once I was all done coloring that in, I did just fussy cut that, and now I'm taking a memento marker in the color of tuxedo black, and I'm just going around the edges of the image. And this will hide any imperfections in your cutting. If you're a lazy cutter like me and you left off a few spots or it wasn't quite perfect, that will cover it all up for you, as will this step, just taking some distress ink in the color of gathered twigs and very lightly pouncing that around the edges of the image. And those two steps really will hide anything that you did not like about the cutting that you did. So this is our Stitch Stackers Creative Die Set, and I just wanted to show you here that you can use them to get the stitching look on your cards, but if you just want a basic frame, you can use the die cut set to cut out just the center portion, and the outer portion will just be your basic frame. So that's how I created the frame for this card. Now I'm laying that over another piece of Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm just tracing around that with a pencil, so when I apply my inks to the background, I know what part will show. And those pencil lines really get covered up with the ink, so there's no worries about that. I'm going to ink this background using Ranger Archival ink, and I'm starting with the color of Rose Madder. I chose these particular inks mainly because I like the colors. I felt like the pinks really tied into the coloring that I had done on the dog image, and I'm not planning any special techniques other than just applying the color to the background. So they're an archival ink, they're permanent, but those properties really don't matter. Like I said, I just chose them based on the color. I want this to be darker around the four corners and the outer perimeter. So I am applying layers of ink to build up the color, not trying to go super dark on the first layer, but just sort of building that up as I go by putting more and more layers on. And what's fun is if you leave an area of light towards the center of the card, when you mount those glasses on there, it will almost give you the hint of like it's a nose or a face behind there. Now this next color is Vermilion, and I'm just very lightly adding that into the four corners. And you can see there I just put that frame back up onto the card here, just so I could see how that inking was going to look with the frame once it's attached. So now that I'm happy with that, to add a little bit of visual interest and sort of visual texture to the background, I'm going to use our stencil Oscillations, and I'm using the pattern that's on the far left of that stencil. And I love that this comes with three different patterns that you can use. It's sort of like 3 for 1. And I'm going to just lay that over the background and pounce that Rose Madder ink very lightly through the stencil, and just peek through and make sure I am happy with how much ink I've added. I don't want too much ink because I don't want this background to take away from the focal point of the card, but I did feel like it just finished things off. It looked a little empty to me or blank to me without it. So this was just an easy way to finish things off on that background. And again, I want it mostly to be around the outer perimeter of that inked background. Get this corner here. And there we go. Now this is the sentiment set called Perspective, and there are so many different great sentiments in this set. You really could pick about any of them to add to this card. They're perfect with the glasses die cut. So I am going to just stamp this using my Misty Stamp Positioning tool again, and I'm going to lay out my elements on there and then hold them in place with the magnets so I can get the positioning of that sentiment just right. And I can take those up off of there now. Of course, I bumped my sentiment when I did that. Let's get that back in place. And I'm going to be using the archival ink in the color of Potting Soil to stamp this sentiment. I really love this color. If you stamp it a few times, on top of each other. You can really deepen it up, and it's dark enough to have really good contrast, but it's not that stark black that you get. Sometimes when I stamp a sentiment in black, I feel like it takes away from the other elements on the card. So by using this nice deep rich brown, I think it just matches up well with the other elements. Now I die cut these glasses from some brown cardstock I had in my stash, but it wasn't quite the right brown and it just didn't look rich enough and match all of the other inking that I had done. So I'm taking some Gathered Twig Distress ink and just pouncing it right on top of the die just to darken that up. And I felt like it just tied in with the rest of the elements on the card much better after I had done that. Now I'm ready to start assembling my card, so I added foam squares to the back of that frame. And this is a standard size card front, and I will mount this to an actual note card once I'm complete. And I'm adding the glasses. They have a foam square in the middle and then liquid adhesive on the outer edges that attach to the frame. And you can see the dog has liquid adhesive down at the bottom and then a foam square behind him. And the card is complete. So here's another look at that finished card. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, on our website and blog. And I will be sure to link all of those for you down in the YouTube description box below. And if you just stay tuned here at the very end of the video, the supply list, including the Copic markers used for coloring in that image, will all be listed for you. Thanks for watching.